This guy was as cold and calculated as they come. Maybe we weren't going to get it solved.
It was like the epitome of innocence that had been preyed upon.
This is a case that has no evidence. We didn't have DNA. We didn't have fingerprints.
Step inside the court of law with the new true crime podcast, American Justice.
We realized we have 4 men who answered the same ad for a job on a farm.
My brother Ralph went to interview and he was never seen again.
A podcast that explores impactful crimes and reveals how our justice system works.
You have to consider that there are more possibilities than one.
And sometimes how it doesn't.
We have to find whoever this monster is.
Go in depth into chilling cases and their conclusions in this new true crime series.
You just have a pit in your stomach thinking, how many people are we going to find?
New episodes of American Justice are available every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 384 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm having a pretty good week. I was really excited. We just got done taping our True Crime All the Time episode, and it's a very different one for us. It's about a serial rapist from Ohio who was just identified this year through DNA as the man who murdered 2 women in Virginia's Shenandoah National Park over 20 years ago. But we actually profiled these 2 women in our episode on True Crime All the Time Unsolved. The episode is called The Route 29 Stalker.
Yeah.
And these 2 women, Laura Winans and Julianne Williams, were found dead at their campsite. We talked about it. They identified their killer. And that's who we're profiling in this week's TCAT.
So go give it a listen.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Merjam Murphy.
Hey, Murphy.
Andrew Johnson.
Well, appreciate that, Johnson.
No breakfast at this Tiffany's.
Well, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm okay with no breakfast.
Dakota M.
Hey, Dakota.
Paula Ballard.
Well, thank you, Paula.
Liz Stahl.
Hey, there's Stahl.
Emma Vital.
Aw, thank you, Emma.
Ben.
Well, good old Ben.
Luke Francis.
Hey, Luke.
Ann.
Well, hey, thanks, Ann.
Nick the Quick Frazier.
Man, Nick, appreciate you.
Jason Gardner.
Hey, Jason.
And last but not least, Kelly Argent.
Well, thank you, Kelly.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Katra Von Dietz.
Well, thanks, KVD.
Which is just a very, very fun name to say.
It's very fun.
We also had a couple of great PayPal donations from Rad Girl Graphics.
Hey, thanks, Rad Girl.
And Karen Steele.
There's Karen.
So thanks to everyone who chooses to support the show. We really appreciate it. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
We're talking about the disappearance of Nieko Lisi. In 2011, 18-year-old Nieko Lisi disappeared after taking a road trip to Tennessee without telling his family. Nearly 5 years later, investigators found the truck Nieko was driving, but Nieko hasn't been located. So we have a mysterious disappearance that we're going to be talking about. Nieko Lisi was born on June 11th, 1993. He grew up in Addison, a town in New York. Niko's mother, Monica Button, told the show Still a Mystery that she and Niko's dad were married and had 3 children together. They divorced when their boys were 2 and 3. She was pregnant with her daughter at the time. Niko's sister, Kerrigan Lisi, described her brother as tough, protective, fun, and adventurous. Niko's aunt, Rachel Davis, said he was a funny and friendly kid.
Sounded pretty well-rounded.
Yeah, his mom described him as rambunctious and athletic. You know, he enjoyed baseball, basketball, soccer, and wrestling.
What was that last one?
Wrestling.
Ah, there you go.
harkens you back to the days where you had to wear tights.
Singlet.
The required uniform.
We call them singlets.
Tight. I do think you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? In talking about Nieko, people did describe him as pretty well-rounded. You know, you have the sister who says he was the tough, protective older brother, but he was also fun and adventurous. His aunt said he was fun and friendly, and his mom said he was rambunctious and athletic.
Sometimes I want to be rambunctious.
Well, who doesn't want to be rambunctious? If we could all get away with that. I think a lot of times you are rambunctious.
I get it from my cousins.
People don't always get to see your rambunctious side. Nieko's family eventually moved from Addison to Jasper, a very small town in Steuben County, New York. Most people in the county knew Nieko. And I don't know how many people grew up in a small town like this. I did. Very small town. It wasn't even a town. It was a village, while I was growing up. And it was the type of place where pretty much everyone knew everyone. The school was small. So from freshman to senior, you knew everybody who was at that school.
Not always a good thing.
No. When you're a freshman, maybe you don't want to catch the attention of every senior because you might be picked on a little bit. But I think about my daughter's school, 400 or 500 kids in a class. You don't even know all the kids in your own grade.
Yeah, let alone the rest of them.
Let alone the other grades in the school. But I did enjoy that. I enjoyed kind of the small town life.
I'm kind of envisioning that movie, where the seniors go after the freshmen with the paddles. Ben, Matt Damon's friend, Ben
Affleck.
Yeah.
So Ben Affleck is is Matt Damon's friend.
Exactly.
That's his claim to fame. Not all the movies that he's been in himself and all of that.
I kind of forgot for a minute. But you remember that movie where they chase all the kids around with the wooden paddles? It's a famous coming of age.
You talking about Dazed and Confused?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember Ben Affleck in it. I don't remember Matt Damon in it.
No, he wasn't in it.
He was just Ben Affleck's friend.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey was in it.
Yeah, he's kind of the iconic person from that movie.
Yeah.
Not Ben Affleck.
No.
He had, I think, a rather small part, but I don't know. According to Monica Button, they were a close family and always checked in with each other throughout the day. Nieko's friend, Harley Durham, agreed that Nieko always answered when you called him. However, Nieko didn't like rules and authority. He had a rebellious streak, which got him into trouble. According to NBC, Nieko had been in trouble with the police previously, but they didn't provide any details around what type of trouble he got into. One of Nieko's friends from high school told the outlet WKRN, Nieko was always a very loyal friend to me, but he doesn't know when to back down.
I think we all kind of know somebody like that.
Yes. I have a side of me like that, but it normally only comes out when I've been drinking.
Yes. We have to pull you away sometimes.
Now, Monica did agree with this friend. She said Nieko had a wild streak, which made her worried. She said someday he's going to get in trouble with his attitude, no matter how much we tried to correct him. But she did add, Nieko had a heart. He cared about people. And I think, someone can have all of those traits. You can have a big heart. You can care a lot about people, but you can also have a wild streak.
Yeah.
And if someone pushes you too far, you may not be the type to back down. In the late summer and early fall of 2011, Nieko was working odd jobs while preparing to join the military. He wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and become a Navy SEAL.
Impressive.
It is impressive. I don't know how many people have seen the movie Lone Survivor. It's one of my favorites. Mark Wahlberg plays this real guy, Marcus. But the beginning of the movie, there's like a montage of them going through, I think they're Navy SEALs. But they're going through this montage of, trying to graduate, trying to make the cut. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's something that sitting on my couch, I know with certitude, I could not do. So I have a great deal of respect for people who, can go through these types of things. And let's face it, are willing to put their lives on the line for the rest of us.
Well, look, you'd be out as soon as you realized the ocean had a part of it.
Yeah, at one point they're like laying in the ocean, freezing temperatures. Nieko was helping his stepfather work on apartment buildings in the area and training and exercising in his spare time. Well, I think if you're getting ready to join the military, and especially if you have aspirations of becoming a Navy SEAL, you better start training and exercising before you get there.
A lot.
Because it's going to be nonstop. On September 30th, 2011, Nieko and his friend Robbie Knight were driving a stolen 2004 GMC truck in Steuben County. That evening, Monica's brother, Nico's uncle, called her and told her Nieko and Robbie stopped by around 2 p.m. He mentioned that Robbie was driving a truck, which he said belonged to his grandfather. The boys told him they were going camping in Buffalo. They planned on meeting some girls in person whom they had met online. Monica thought this was a little odd because Nieko and Robbie weren't really friends. She also found it strange that they were going camping because it was getting cold at that time of the year.
So things really aren't lining up with his mom on what's going on.
No, I think to her, what she's hearing doesn't add up. Monica texted Nieko and told him she knew he was at the house earlier that day because his sneakers were gone and his bedroom door was open. She asked him what he took. Nieko responded, clothes, duh.
Well, like all parents, you're probably going to wonder what's up.
Yeah, I think she has the feeling that something's going on. She just doesn't know what it is. But I want to talk about this text, this reply. Short and sweet, clothes, duh. This sounds like a reply from a teenager. Monica said all she could do was think to herself, what is he up to? According to NiekoLisi.com, before they went to see Nico's uncle, Nieko and Robbie were captured by a security camera in Kenona, New York on September 30th. They were then captured on camera at a Wegmans grocery store in Rochester, New York at 4 a.m. that morning. When Nieko was last seen, he was wearing a black hoodie, red shorts, sneakers, and a crucifix necklace. He was 5'10", 165 pounds with a muscular build. He had brown hair and brown eyes and an unfinished tattoo of a guardian angel on his left side and 4 Chinese symbols on the back of his upper right arm. Monica went to work at a local hair salon. On the morning of October 1st, one of her first customers asked if she'd heard about the stolen truck in Addison. Monica read an article in the newspaper and called her brother. She asked what kind of truck Robbie Knight was driving. The uncle's description matched the description of the stolen truck. The New York State Police eventually confirmed the truck was stolen from Steuben Street in Addison. So, we said Monica is worried. She's trying to figure out what's going on. Well, now she's got to be very concerned.
Yeah, because he's in a stolen truck.
Monica still couldn't get in touch with Nieko, so she called Robbie Knight's grandparents that afternoon to see if they knew anything. She asked if Robbie had their truck, and his grandmother informed her they didn't own a truck. That was when Monica knew for sure that Nieko and Robbie were traveling in a stolen truck. Additionally, Robbie's grandmother mentioned that he had gone to his parents' home in Michigan, but no one had seen Nieko.
And you know how upset my parents would be at me if I was in a stolen vehicle and knew I was in a stolen vehicle?
Again?
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah.
No, I get you. I did a lot of things as a kid, kind of rebellious, a little borderline stuff, but nothing major. I certainly never, stole somebody's car and was driving around in it or anything like that. My parents would have been furious.
Yeah. I mean, look, I borrowed my parents' car when they went on vacation. When I was told not to, I would borrow it, you know.
But is that technically stealing?
No.
I don't think
It's
so.
family.
Yeah. Monica called the state police to report that her son might have had something to do with the stolen truck. She was told to call back Monday to speak to an investigator. Nico's family looked at his phone records over the weekend. They discovered that he traveled from various locations in New York to Michigan to Tennessee on September 30th and October 1st. And we talk about this all the time, especially in unsolved cases. You know, that worry meter, you know, it starts at a certain level and then it obviously has to grow as you find out more and more. Okay. It jumps up when you figure out that they're in this stolen truck. It jumps up a little more when you find out that Robbie went to his parents' home in Michigan, but no one saw Nieko. And now you have these phone records that have his phone in Michigan and in Tennessee.
Now you're freaking out because he's further south.
Nico's phone pinged for the last time on Flint Rock Drive in Franklin, Tennessee at 4:05 p.m. on October 1st. And Nieko did have a connection to the city. He spent the summer of 2009 and part of his junior year living with his aunt and uncle in Franklin.
I think Franklin's near Nashville, if I remember right.
I'm going to take your word for it because the one thing I know is someone will correct you.
That is true.
If you're wrong. Nico's grandmother called his cell phone around 5 p.m. On October 1st, Nieko answered but said he couldn't talk and would call her back. Monica told NBC that this was unusual because he's her favorite and everyone knows it. They were inseparable.
So cause for alarm?
Yeah, cause for alarm. You know, I love my parents, but I had a very special connection with my grandparent. Not that I wouldn't answer the phone for my parents, but I would always answer the phone for my grandparents.
I know you were really close with your granddad.
Yeah, especially my grandfather. I mean, if he called, I knew he needed to talk to me. You know, he wasn't just calling for no reason. I was going to answer that call. Nieko never called his grandmother back. And this was the last time anyone in his family heard from him. And it's a strange last call, right? I don't have time to talk, but I'll call you back. And then he never does. On Monday, October 3rd, Monica checked her mail and found a letter addressed to Nieko. Inside was his driver's license and a note saying the license was found on the street outside the Hornell post office on October 1st. Hornell is about 15 minutes from Nico's home in Jasper. And if we go back to this alarm meter type thing, okay, now we've blown the roof off of it.
Sure we have.
Because this just seems so strange. His driver's license is found outside of the post office 15 minutes from his home. But yet he's apparently been to Michigan and now he's in Tennessee. He would need his driver's license, you would think.
So how did his license end up in Hornell, but he's down in Franklin?
I think it's just one of the mysteries. But, you know, obviously by this time, Monica already knew something was wrong. And I think what this did was it confirmed her suspicions. She called and texted Nieko numerous times, and his siblings had done the same. Everybody in the family, right, is worried about Nieko. On October 4th, Nico's family contacted Robbie Knight's father and learned Robbie was with the Michigan State Police and would call when he came home. Okay, I don't know what you're thinking when you get that information.
I definitely would be curious, like what's going on there?
And is there a connection to Nieko? This fact that Robbie is with the Michigan State Police. We talked about it, right? Robbie traveled to Michigan. It was said that Nieko wasn't with him. He arrived at his father's house in Romulus, Michigan, between 6 and 10 a.m. on October 1st. Romulus is about a 7-hour drive from Steuben County, New York. Robbie's dad found him sleeping at 11 a.m. When he came home from work, Robbie told his family that Nieko dropped him off and allegedly stole his phone. He was on his grandparents' cell plan, so they turned service off to his phone that day. As far as the public knows, nothing was recovered from Robbie's phone. And this is an unsolved case. So, that statement, as far as the public knows, is an interesting one because the police could have some information that they found on Robbie's phone and they just haven't disclosed it. We don't know.
No. We know sometimes they like to keep things held back.
Yeah, it's not just that they like to, they need to, right? It's out of necessity sometimes. At some point in early October, Nico's Facebook account disappeared. His mother has never been able to recover it. Man, this poor woman, you feel for her, obviously. She's trying to find her son. She's worried about him. He's not answering calls. He's not returning texts. I'm sure a logical step would be to go to social media, see if he's posted anything there. And then all of a sudden, his Facebook account disappears.
And then you have to ask yourself that question. Why did that happen? Is it Nieko? Is it somebody that did something to Nieko? Why did it disappear?
Nieko Lisi was reported missing on October 5th, 2011. We talked about Robbie Knight. He was questioned by the Michigan State Police that day, but his behavior during the interview led investigators to recommend that he undergo an immediate psychiatric evaluation. According to Nico's aunt, Rachel Davis, Robbie had some sort of psychiatric episode. And we don't have all the particulars, but, obviously he was displaying some type of behavior that led the investigators to think something was going on with him.
And they needed to have him looked at.
Yeah, absolutely. Robbie was released from the hospital on October 9th. Nico's aunt checked Facebook and saw a post from Robbie announcing that he was out of the hospital. But Robbie Knight died on the evening of October 10th. He overdosed on prescription medication.
Wow. So he was in the hospital from the 5th till the 9th, released, and the very next day, overdosed.
And Nico's family learned about his death on October 11th. Nico's aunt, Rachel, told Still a Mystery, I had sympathy for his family. But as Nico's aunt, I was more worried about would we ever find out what happened to him? As far as we knew, Robbie was the last link to Nieko. And I get that, right? You're a little torn. I mean, this young man ended his life. You obviously have to take that into account. But then on the flip side, you're thinking that he might be the linchpin to finding Nieko.
Yeah, I mean, you're thinking, man, he's the last link, and I got to talk to him, and I need some information, but he's no longer here.
And now you're never going to get that information if he had it.
And then, for me, I'm thinking, why did he have to go into the hospital? What was going on that he needed to get evaluated?
And I think you're also going to question why he took his life.
Yeah.
Was it because of this psychiatric episode that people talked about? Was he having mental health issues that led to his actions? Or was it something else? Was it guilt? Was it, did he do something that involved Nieko that he couldn't live with? You're going to have all these thoughts running through your mind, I think, if you're part of Nico's family. On October 15th, Monica identified a young man from Nico's phone records. He was a former classmate of Nico's who lived on Flint Rock Drive in Franklin, Tennessee, where Nico's phone pinged for the last time. She thought he might know something about Nico's disappearance. Now, this young man's name has never been made public, but apparently he told Monica that Nieko spent the night at his house on October 1st. They played soccer together. According to WKRN, he said Nieko walked back to his house and disappeared. However, in the Still a Mystery documentary, it was implied that Nieko disappeared while playing soccer. Monica called the police as soon as the call was over. An investigator called the young man, but according to Monica, he said something to the effect of, I don't know who you are. I'm not comfortable speaking with you. Now, based on phone records, Nieko exchanged a total of 36 calls with this young man while driving from New York to Tennessee. Nieko was speaking to him while ignoring calls from his family. Monica wanted to know what they spoke about, but this question and others, they've never been answered.
36 calls is a lot of calls.
It is. It makes you think that this young man was part of, or maybe solely, the reason that Nieko was traveling to Tennessee.
Yeah. And you feel like he has to know something. Why is he not sharing that information with authorities or even Monica?
In March 2012, Monica and her sister traveled to Tennessee to meet the young man in person. His father was present during their conversation. According to Monica, whenever she asked about Nieko, the father would interject, and the boy hardly said anything.
Strange.
Well, it's strange. It also could be, a father trying to protect his son. Maybe not thinking he did anything to Nieko, but not wanting him to implicate himself or say anything that would even arouse suspicion. I don't know. Maybe that was him doing kind of what an attorney would do. Don't answer that.
Yeah.
From the first phone call to their meeting in 2012, Monica heard 3 stories about how Nieko got to Tennessee. First, she was told that he was dropped off. Then the friend said he picked Nieko up a couple of blocks away from his house. Finally, he said Nieko walked to his house. She asked if Nieko was with anyone, but that was not answered, or basically it was skipped over.
So not really giving credible accounts.
Not really giving much of anything. And I think you asked the question, why is that? And to a lot of people, it raises suspicion. Right? If you didn't have anything to do with it, whatever happened to Nieko, you were his classmate, you played soccer, you're his friend, whatever, why wouldn't you tell his mom what happened or what you knew? Why wouldn't you tell the police?
Yeah, because at this point, it sounds like you're trying to hide something.
It does. Now, we don't know that to be the case, but that's how it appears. Monica then learned that the young man sent Nieko a money order for $90. Nieko picked it up in Ohio about 7 hours before his final phone ping in Tennessee, as confirmed by the New York State Police. Monica asked why he sent Nieko money, but all the young man would say was Nieko needed money. Monica presumed he used the money to buy gas to get to Tennessee. Monica spent several days in Franklin searching for her son, but never found any sign of him and never learned exactly even why he went to Tennessee. She and her sister spoke to some of Nieko's old friends in Tennessee, but none of them had any information.
It'd be frustrating because you're probably feeling like you're getting shut out. Like, I just need some information. My son's missing. And every time they go somewhere, they're not getting anything.
No, and I get it. She's talking to some of these other friends. They might not know anything. But it's hard to think that this young man doesn't know more than what he was willing to say. Right? There was something in those 36 calls that was not disclosed. Maybe Nieko's reason for coming, what they did while, after he got there. There's got to be some information that this young man could shed light on, but for some reason he didn't. Meanwhile, there were a lot of rumors surrounding Nieko's disappearance. Early in the investigation, the New York State Police believed Nieko and Robbie Knight left town to avoid charges for the stolen truck. Another rumor was that Nieko was murdered. There was talk that he was chopped up in a ditch, buried inside a tractor tire, under a bridge or along railroad track. And this is not out of the ordinary, unfortunately. Right? When you have an unsolved case like this, a disappearance, you're going to have all kind of rumors that start to fly around.
Yeah, people are going to make up stuff and just spread it like wildfire.
Just for the sake of having something to talk about, maybe.
Yeah.
But, if you're Monica, if you're Nieko's family, some of these are rough to hear. Chopped up in a ditch, buried inside a tractor tire. His family tried to look into every rumor. and Monica called the police to report everything she heard. Unfortunately, Robbie Knight's father passed away in August 2012. Nico's family suspected that he could have known something about Nico's disappearance. In November 2015, New York State Police investigators traveled to Romulus, Michigan to talk to Robbie's brother, Christopher Knight, who was incarcerated, and Robbie's mother. They didn't learn much, but Christopher did admit he and Robbie shut down Nico's Facebook page from their home. The Nieko Lisi website did not elaborate on why they deleted his Facebook page.
Well, that was a mystery. So now Monica knows that for whatever reason, Robbie and his brother did it.
And the who is good information, but the why, not having that stings. Because, what's the impetus for shutting it down?
I mean, you got to think, maybe was there some post out there that might have led investigators to some type of clue?
Might have implicated someone. Also, Robbie's brother played Peter Brady. That must have been tough.
Christopher Knight, man.
Was Peter, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's also a strange sign that when they go to talk to him, he's already incarcerated. The New York State Police conducted a search along with the Michigan State Police, but found nothing. So Gibbs, let's break it down like where we're at right now in the case. You've got a couple of strange characters involved with Nieko, possibly involved with his disappearance. There's Robbie, who he was reportedly riding around in a stolen truck. And then, there's this young man in Tennessee who was a former classmate who doesn't want to give really any information to either the police or to Nico's mother.
Yeah. And then you have Robbie that, for whatever reason, the police felt he needed to be evaluated
for some psychiatric issue.
And then the day after he gets out, overdoses.
And his brother's incarcerated and admits that they shut down Nico's Facebook page. Yeah. So there's a lot going on here. But the most significant lead in the case occurred almost 5 years after Nieko went missing. On July 20th, 2016, Nico's associate from Franklin, Tennessee, was questioned by the New York State Police and the Franklin Police Department. At first, he was cooperative, but then stopped talking and hired an attorney. And I don't want to be a hypocrite because so many times we talk about, people hiring an attorney. It is a sound practice. But at the same time, as we've said before, in the eyes of many, it can make you look guilty or at the very least as though you're hiding something. The next day on the 21st, the police received a tip and they found the stolen GMC truck Nieko was driving. The truck was found in a detached garage in Sylvan Park, Nashville. According to the outlet WETM, the truck had been stripped down to its shell, burned, and then locked inside the garage.
Well, that's suspicious.
I would say very. First of all, why do you strip a car? More importantly, why do you burn a car? And then if you do all that, why do you keep it?
Yeah, why keep it locked inside of a garage?
If a car catches on fire, all right, you get somebody to tow it to a junkyard, get insurance money for it, whatever. Now, this is a stolen truck, so is there more to it?
And did it burn on its own or was it arson?
Well, that's a great question because, if you start to think about arson and the stripping of the truck, then you could get into the area of potentially trying to cover up evidence. Maybe something happened inside that truck that no one wanted anyone to ever find. The home adjacent to the garage was known to be the location of parties that catered to people Nico's age. The police haven't released details about the owners of the property, but they did disclose that Nieko was associated with the people who were living there in 2011. Authorities have said that different people were living in the house by 2016, so the renters and the owners would have known about the truck being in the garage.
So you see this truck burnt, stripped. You're like, yeah, I don't really need a garage. It's okay. Just leave this thing here. Nobody thought about getting rid of the truck, calling a scrapyard.
Well, I guess if you're a renter, maybe you don't have the authority. Maybe that was part of the deal, right? We'll rent you the house, but you're not going to be able to use the garage because I got a burnt out truck sitting in there that I don't want to get rid of.
Maybe.
According to Nico's aunt, Rachel Davis, Monica Button spoke to the former property owners in December 2011. They said they didn't know Nieko was missing and they would call if they heard anything. Now, the one thing that you cannot say about Monica is that she's leaving, any stone unturned. She's checking out everything.
She's very diligent.
And she's traveling to whatever state she has to try to talk to people and get the truth. Monica said about the discovery of the truck per investigation discovery, I just felt like the floor had dropped out from underneath me. I didn't expect the police to be calling me and telling me that they had located that vehicle. I just remember feeling if someone did that to the truck, what in God's name did they do to my son?
Well, that's a thought that's going to run through your head.
Yeah, back to your point, did this truck just burst into flames or was it set on fire? Monica reached out to the original owner of the stolen truck who said the police called him and asked if he'd ever hauled a dead animal in the back of the truck because they found blood evidence. The blood evidence came back inconclusive. It was a mixture of male DNA.
Which is going to cause more alarm for Monica.
As she's looking for her son, yeah, absolutely. The TBI, or Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, took over Nico's case in the fall of 2017. Agents believe there are people in the Franklin area who could help solve the case. The deaths of potential witnesses have made this a difficult case for investigators. Robbie's brother, Christopher Knight, died in August 2018, but sources didn't specify his cause of death. Monica also figured out that two people allegedly involved in the dismantling of the stolen truck have also died. So, Gibbs, you and I, as we break down these unsolved cases, we often talk about potential witnesses or people who could have information about the case dying. But normally it's because 30, 40, 50 years have gone by and people age and they die. This case is not quite that old, but yet a lot of people who are thought to potentially have ties to the case are now dead.
Which adds to the mystery.
In 2020, the TBI released a video with the latest information on the case. Lead agent Nathan Neese told the public he believes there are people who know how the truck got into the garage and what happened to Nieko. And I don't think he's going out on a limb there. I mean, I think you and I sitting here, I think anyone listening has to be suspicious of this truck and think that there's a good chance whoever did this to the truck also could have done something to Nieko, and the two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a far-fetched theory.
I don't think so either.
In 2021, Monica Button expressed her frustrations to Dateline and pointed out how multiple people connected to the case are dead. 10 days after Nieko and Robbie left, Robbie is dead. Police didn't even question him when he was released from the hospital. They didn't question his father or brother either. Now, they're all dead too.
Yeah, she makes a good point.
I think so. I mean, these are people who may or may not have had something to do with Nico's disappearance, but at the very least, you would think they would all have been questioned. Monica said she's grateful for the work of the TBI, but explained that they want to make arrests, and she just wants to find Nieko and bring his remains home. She told Dateline if he were alive, he would have contacted us. It was just natural for us to keep in touch. I know in my heart that he's gone, but that doesn't mean we've stopped looking for him. He's out there somewhere, and he needs to be brought home. He doesn't deserve to be thrown out like discarded trash. He deserves peace, and his family deserves peace. And I think one thing that is undeniable as we've gone through this case is that you have to feel for Monica. I mean, here's a mother who just desperately wants to find her son. I'm sure that she wants to find out what happened to him, and she would like for whoever's responsible, if there was foul play, for them to be brought to justice. But she even says it. I just want to find him. He deserves to be brought home.
And I even think, if it came up to the point where, hey, I know somebody that can tell you what happened and where he's at, but you have to make sure that they don't ever get prosecuted for it. I think most parents would say, okay, because I just want my child back.
Yeah, I get that. If it was between that and never finding out where your child was, then I think you make that deal.
Yeah.
Because the alternative is you never find your child and the people never get caught, prosecuted anyway. But Monica also says something here, to Dateline that I think about a lot. In these unsolved cases, you have people who disappear, who, are not estranged from their family. They talk to their family on a regular basis. So to go years and years and years without any contact, I think a lot of times tells the family, unfortunately, a lot about, the state of their loved one. And it's not good. Lead agent Nathan Neese said, I have a young man who's been missing going on 10 years now, and he's made no contact with loved ones. There's probably something sinister that has happened. So again, there, I think he's agreeing with, what we just talked about, but he also fully believes this case can be solved. Monica told the outlet WKRN that year, I do know that people know things and they're not saying anything. I feel there is something in Franklin that is holding people back. I think people are fearful.
Well, I agree with both statements. I agree it could be solved, and I believe there is a reason why people aren't saying something.
Well, let's face it. Fear is a very powerful, motivating factor. Let's just talk about, a theory where someone in Franklin did something to Nieko. And it's possible that there are a number of people in town who know who it was. But could this be a person viewed as being so dangerous that it's a person you don't dare cross? You don't want to say a word about this person because they wouldn't hesitate to come back on you. You could see that scenario, right?
Well, of course, yeah. I'm just going to stay quiet, mind my own business.
In June 2021, it was reported that with the help of an anonymous donor, the reward would increase to $30,000 for a 48-hour period. Monica Button issued the statement, I'm tired. I just want to do what I can to have someone come forward with information. And if that takes money, that's what I'm going to offer. June 11th was Nieko's 28th birthday. And I talked with some family members and thought we needed to do something different here. I'm not going to let these people in Tennessee forget that Nieko was my child. I'm not going to let them forget that I'm here. I still want answers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea, right? To pump up the reward, even if it's just for a short period of time. Because if that's what somebody needs to come forward, maybe that's what's going to draw them out. Clearly, it didn't happen on this one, but it's still a good idea.
Yeah, I kind of view it as there's no harm in doing it, right? It can only be helpful as an incentive. Now, it can't make people come forward, but as we've seen, the higher the reward, the more likely someone is to turn on someone. I just talked about fear being a powerful motivating factor. Well, money is as well. On November 26, 2022, a hunter in Williamson County, New York, was tracking deer in a wooded area along the eastern part of Clovercroft Road when he found skeletal human remains. The Williamson County Sheriff's Office found additional remains on Monday the 28th. The remains had been exposed to the weather for some time, which would make identification difficult. Monica told local news outlets that she normally reaches out to law enforcement, but this time law enforcement reached out to her about the remains. She said, per WKRN, every discovery is something that does something to a mom in my position. I'll be honest, this time, I'm hoping that it turns out to be my son.
Oh.
And I just think that tells you where her mindset is at this point in time.
Yeah, probably just so tired.
She wants to find her son. Now, she would love for him to be alive and well, but so much time has gone by that she even said it. She doesn't believe that's going to happen. He would have contacted them by now. So she's at the point where remains are found. She's hoping that they're Nieko. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any articles that kind of gave updates about the remains and whether they were identified. My assumption is if they were, they weren't Nieko's.
Right, because
that would have been big news. Monica runs a Facebook group called Search for Nieko Lisi, where she posts case updates. In July of this year, Monica posted about the anniversary of the truck being found. She explained that in 2011, the property owner's son lived in the house, but he passed away before the truck was found. By 2016, the owner's daughter lived there with her boyfriend. The boyfriend gave police access to the garage. The property has since been sold and the garage is no longer there. So that does kind of clear up a little bit of the kind of the ownership or who was living in the house. It sounds like it was all family throughout this time.
It makes you wonder, did the property owner's son that was living in the house at the time have any connection?
The problem is he passed away before the truck was even found. So he would have never been questioned because they didn't know to question him. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is seeking information about the Sylvan Park property and wants to hear from anyone who hung out there in late September or early October 2011. October 1st, 2024 will mark 13 years since Nieko Lisi disappeared. His family and investigators believe there was foul play involved. If you have any information about the disappearance of Nieko Lisi, you can call the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations at 1-800-TBI-FIND or submit a tip online by emailing tips@tbi.tn.gov. So, Gibbs, as we wrap up this case, to me, there is a lot of mystery here. You have the stolen truck. You have the traveling from New York to Ohio to Tennessee by Nieko, the 36 calls while he's traveling to this one specific person in Franklin, Tennessee, who has been less than forthcoming, it sounds like,
right,
with both the authorities and Nico's mother. And then you have this property in Sylvan Park where the truck is ultimately found, stripped, burned, but for some reason kept in this garage.
For all those years.
And you just asked the question. The owner's son, who was living at the property at the time, most certainly you would think would have known about the truck being there. He was living there.
And in the truck bed, there was blood that had some male DNA.
And they said a mixture
Yeah.
of male DNA, which is a scary thought because it makes it sound like there could have been multiple people who were either hurt in the bed of that truck, bled in the bed of that truck. We just don't know. I think, one of the big problems with this case is the fact that so many people, and I'll use the word involved, but involved at the very least on the periphery, have died. And many of these people were young.
Yeah.
They didn't die of old age. So it does make you wonder, how many of these people knew the details of what happened to Nieko? Were there people who were killed because of what they knew? Were there people who ended their lives because they couldn't live with what they knew? I don't know the answers.
I don't know if we ever will.
I don't either, but you'd have to say there's a great deal of mystery, a lot of mysteries surrounding this case. But again, as I said, I feel horrible for Nico's mother, Monica. Number one, she's missing her son.
Yeah.
And I think based on her own words, she's come to the realization that he's most likely not alive. And she's at the point where she just wants to find his remains so that she can lay him to rest.
Yeah, she just wants confirmation.
But I don't even know if she'll ever even get that. That's a scary thought.
It is. I mean, I think it's solvable. I just don't know how or when.
Yes. Yeah, I'm to the point where I'm very leery in saying that cases are not solvable. Now, we've had some that were 40, 50, 60 years old, and those are going to be tough.
Yeah.
But this is not that old. There is somebody out there who knows, I believe, what happened to Nieko. They just need to find that person, and maybe they already have. And if so, they need to figure out how to get that person to give them the information they need.
Yeah, speak up.
But like we talk about, normally it's not in a person's best interest, right, to give that type of information up. First and foremost, it probably would implicate them in some crime, maybe even murder or, whatever. At the very least, a cover up or an accessory after the fact or something like that. I don't know. This is one of those wait and sees, but hopefully it gets solved sooner than later. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Zero.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Gibby. This is Rocky from Nashville. Got to start off by saying that I started listening to you during COVID when I was pretty much stuck in a hotel for 2 months and didn't have much going on. So really appreciate the show. I think you guys do a wonderful job. Just finished listening to the Nieko Jenkins episode, and I was actually working in a hotel right around the corner from the Crown Plaza at that time. So very, very interesting take you guys took on it. I had some friends on the Rosemont PD that gave me some insight and personal opinion. I think it was just unfortunately a really bad night gone wrong. I don't think anyone was involved in taking Niiko's life. I think it was just some poor choices on everyone's behalf. I think that there are some things that could have been handled better, but it is what it is, unfortunately. Really appreciate all that you guys do. Cannot wait to continue listening to future episodes of TCAT, of Unsolved, and, of course, of Criminology. And I am Team TCAT, although I do tend to lean more towards TV. Love you guys. Take care and keep your own time ticking. Bye.
Wow, she said that last part so low, I couldn't even hear it.
You heard it.
She does lean towards Gibby. I heard it.
Thank you very much.
So she's in Nashville, pretty close to where part of this case takes place.
Maybe she'll have enjoy it.
But that was interesting, information about the Nieko Jenkins. And that was a big mystery case that may not be a mystery at all.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
There's so many conspiracy theories going around about a case like that. But I do believe that, sometimes the answer that is kind of staring you in the face is most likely the right one.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what she was talking about.
Sure. Yeah. But do you always have those maybes and what ifs?
Yeah, and we have to talk about them.
Yeah.
Because they're part of the case.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, it's Taylor from Michigan. I called, it's probably a few years ago now. I was actually working as a janitor when I first left a voicemail for you guys. What a trip. Anyways, I just wanted to call. I'm from a relatively small town, and this is still an ongoing investigation. There was a man, let me see if I can find his name. His name was Justy Stillwell, and he unfortunately was found murdered in our very small town. we've seen, random drive-bys and crimes like that, but this is there were body parts found on the riverbank. And there was a little girl that it's this whole mess of a story that's still ongoing. I just thought that I would share it with you guys because as someone who's from a small town who has in her 24 years of life never heard of something like this is something that's really shaken our community. They do have the man in custody who they suspect to be the murderer, but as I said, still being investigated as we speak. Thoughts, prayers, love, light, all of that being sent to the families. It's just a horrible thing to find out happening in your small community, and, we're just glad to hear that he's locked up. But if that isn't a reason to watch your six and keep your own time ticking, I don't know what is. But you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll listen to my voicemail when it comes out. Peace out.
Watch your six and keep your own time ticking. That's what you got to do.
Taylor knows what she's saying.
So we had a caller from Tennessee.
Yeah.
Where part of this case takes place. We had a caller from Michigan where part of this case takes place.
You are good with geographical locations.
Is that a coincidence?
Well, no. It was all in the stars. It aligned perfectly.
But, back to the case that she was talking about. Sounds like it's ongoing. We'll keep an eye out on it.
Absolutely.
See how it ends up. It may be a future TCAP.
And we remember that voicemail from years ago.
When you were a janitor.
Yeah.
Gibby does because he has an elephant-like memory.
Exactly. We were going to go in the archives and pull that voicemail up, but I hit the button. I hit the wrong button. Did I not tell you that?
No, you didn't.
You asked me to go see if I could find it in the archive. I thought I was reactivating all of them. I hit the button that deleted all of them.
That's funny since you know literally nothing about how any of the electronics work associated with the podcast.
I just thought we hit that big button right there.
Well, we appreciate the voicemails very much.
We do.
All right, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
I love reality TV on Pluto TV.
Same, and I love that it's free.
It gives me the freedom to watch Bravo's Real Housewives Vault channel.
I'm totally free to watch Bad Girls Club.
I'm free for Jersey Shore.
Love and Hip Hop, I'm free all day.
Survivor, I'm free all night.
With hundreds of free reality shows, you are totally free to watch what you love on Pluto TV.
Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.